Yeah!
What's up, everybody? It's your favorite, you only get one chance to make a first impressions favorite nerd. Today we are looking at the Stratotanker. I can't remember whether this is from Keith or X-Transbots. Oh, Keith proper, what do you know? And we gotta talk a little bit before we even get started. Keith has been impressing me as of late, right? A lot of the releases I felt are very solid. Not all of them, but a lot. Dicka was an obvious disappointment, but their Reflector, their Junkions, Transistor, Scourge to a lesser extent, Klaatu, I've really enjoyed overall. Which brings us to this guy. I haven't transformed him yet. I'm going to do it only once, and it's going to be during this review because I just don't know how many times this thing will survive the transformation. I don't know. It could be plenty. Could be this one time. And the reason why I say that is because it feels, my first impressions out of the box is that it feels like junk. It feels like real junk. That being said, we're still gonna take a look at it. I am open to the possibility of it surprising me. I ordered this from GCI Toys. The link to them will be in the description. They take good care of me over there, so definitely check them out. But let's get started by looking at accessories. So it comes with a gun. Gun is decent enough sculpted, purple plastic, a lot of purple plastic on this guy, but we'll get there, ladies and gents. This does something. Folds, it's just a poor tolerance. And then this button theoretically makes the translucent light up, but the batteries aren't included, so I'll never know for sure. What I do know is that he holds it just fine by tabbing it into the palm of his hand. The gun can also be stowed at the bottom of the truck by tabbing it in right there, and it doesn't hinder it too much. Also, because I'll probably forget when I get to truck mode, let's see, where's the button? These, if I get my little tool, I can't. These struts down in there, you can flip them up so that the trailer can sit separate from the truck. Just like a gimmicky thing, I might as well mention it now. I definitely will forget it later. But unfortunately, I don't see any way to kind of make this work in jet mode, which is interesting because it seems like, you know, it would be better used in jet mode. And maybe there is a way and I just don't know it, but I don't see anything that pops out to me. And can I get it to hold there with tension? No. And I don't see anything in the instructions. He comes with this gray plastic shield. It's a decent enough sculpt. And this tabs into his forearm. Either or will do on that peg there. It can also tab onto the back of the truck. It can also tab into the front of the jet mode. It also comes with a flight stand that tabs in right into this section there, which is nice. It's the same flight stand we've seen 100 times from Keith, but you know what? If it ain't broke, don't bother fixing it, and I think that it does its job. It comes with one screaming face, detailed the same way, except we do have some black paint inside the mouth, but silver face, and then red eyes that look great. The eyes do look great. And lastly, it comes with my favorite third-party accessory, another little baby screwdriver that will go right into my little bin full of them. Now let's talk about the figure, and we're going to start off with this face, which might be a face that only a mother can love. I don't enjoy the sculpt one bit. We do have painted silver plastic inside of purple flat plastic with brilliant red eyes. The eyes are done really well. And the sculpting on the helmet is fine enough, but it just looks cheap. It looks cheap. And it looks dumb. You get up to there, and you can fake the funk and get further up. And down to there, so decent range. It's on a hinge swivel. You get the swivel, so the articulation works just fine. The shoulders pop out of this thing all the time. But ratcheted universal plus an extended hinge in here. Let me back out a taste. So you can get the arm up to a ridiculous level or to a more normal level with no problem. And then a ratcheted swivel, so that's great as well. This is not my favorite part of the design of this figure. We're gonna leave that arm alone. Okay, bicep swivel, double jointed, I believe. Elbow, they get you the full range. Wrist swivel, thumb is on a ball peg, the fingers are on base ball pegs, and then tension hinges at the second and third knuckle. which works fairly well. I really would like to see them get rid of those ball pegs, but no need in beating that dead horse anymore. You guys, I think, know how I feel about that. Flat plastic shoulder, flat plastic bicep, flat plastic forearm, not a lick of paint on a masterpiece take on a figure. This is gonna bother me. There we go. Okay, so we'll talk about the wings for a second. They do swivel and hinge, and you can have them down by his side to take up a little less space on the figure, or you can have the more traditional look. And we do have this gray. Is that plastic? Or is that paint? It's plastic. So no paint there either, but at least it does look interesting. Moving down the figure, I think all of this is just different plastic, not a lick of paint. That's a real bummer. We do have a waist swivel that's ratcheted and decent breakup in color, so the chest that doesn't really bother me in the end, but the lack of, I do find your lack of paint disturbing. We have hip flaps here. They get out of the way. This looks and feels as cheap as it probably does on camera. We'll flip them out of the way for universals. Ratcheted forward. Oh God. Friction out to the side. Looks like full Monty and Van Damme status, so that's nice. There is some die cast in the legs, so there's paint on that, which does look nice. There's this breakaway hinge here for transformation. It doesn't stay like I'd like it to, but it is ratcheted, so at least they made an effort. The knee is really a single hinge that still gets you 90 degrees, so that's nice. The calves, we have paint here, so that's fine. And some purple paint alongside there, so that's okay. This, look, some people would say, like, man, I wish you would say how stuff feels. Truthfully, I don't talk about how stuff feels very often anymore because most stuff feels pretty good. I feel like for the most part, we've gotten out of that era when you could get a third-party figure that felt like junk. But this plastic here feels like junk to me. It feels like junk. Feet are painted purple there, and they're die cast, I believe. We have an ankle rocker that's, you know, great. And then there you get the hinge down, and then you get a toe hinge. So the feet are fine, they're just not pretty. And then there's the back of the figure. And that's pretty much this guy in a nutshell. Really, really lackluster, I'm afraid. Size comparison-wise, there he is next to Galvatron, and that feels fine to me. Let's take a go at transforming this. We're going to go piece by piece. So we're going to unpeg this here. We're going to flip this down and around. And we're going to untab this and bring this out of the way. Fold the landing gear down. And then we need to get this piece here slid down on that bar. And let me see if I can flip this. This is a rubber tire, I can tell because it's coming off of the plastic. There we go. Put that back on. Fold this down to get yourself some leeway so that you can get this up and around. Bring it all the way down. Push the landing gear back. I'm not exactly sure where that ends up. And I think we're gonna leave the rest for now. Let's do the same for the other side. Ooh, Yikers Island. Doesn't feel good. All right, untab here, bring it down, nose cone out, untabbed, tab back in, untabbed, down and around. We're gonna bring this piece out if we can. And then fold this piece down, bring this up, clear it, bring it down, fold the nose cone back in. On the back here, take this, rotate it down on the double hinge so that it sits nice and flush against the back of the calves. Just keep these out of the way. We'll deal with them in a minute. And we're gonna tab these two pieces together. Now make sure that your ratchets are clicked all the way in. There's a lot of space and give between the ratchets, so just make sure that they're clicked all the way in. You'll thank me later. And let's make sure that these are up. And then now we're going to collapse these. There's actually these little pegs here that'll slide into the feet and just smush them down and make sure that everything stays connected. Let's get the head tucked into the chest. And we're just gonna do a little bit of prep work. Fold this up, get these out of the way, or untab. This one will probably just untab on its own. If this one doesn't come untabbed with a quick pull, just look at it for a long period of time and it will untab on its own. And then we're going to separate this cab from this midsection here. I just want you to know I got a pretty nasty stress mark on this tab right here. Now what we have to do is rotate the arms, which are on like a layer, to the back side, or the front side rather. It's on the back side, and then keep this section at the front side so that you have this monstrosity. This kind of looks like a you know, like a Bayverse transformer a little bit. Now I'm going to separate the truck, because I've heard people's braking all over the place, and I just figure if there's anything I can do to alleviate that possibility, I'm going to do it. There's a button right here that you press up and it releases it. We're going to set that to the side. And on this tabs into there. And this comes around and tabs into there. We're going to do that here. And then we have to accordion this down. So we're going to fold in these pieces here. Let me get these arms out of the way so that you can see. We're going to tab that in, and then this has to come down, and these pieces have to go around and fit into these cavities here. And we're just going, I'll tell you, we're not going to waste a whole lot of time with this, because it's going to be a pain, but we're going to give it what we got. Give it everything you got. There. So, and it's still not 100% right. You see how that ain't lined up quite right, but it's gonna have to be good enough for today. We'll get the wings out of the way by bringing this peg out, folding the wing down, and tabbing it into this little notch there. And we'll do the same on this side. And tabbing it in. It's a soft plastic, like most of this, so it's going to have a hard time sticking together. All right, so the arms. Fold the fist in, close these up. Sorry for the cut, I got 8 up. So you want to have it so that this is up, this tabs in to the white armature there, and then the shoulder tab tabs into here, and this tab tabs into there. In order to do that, you need this white piece here to kind of cut perpendicular between the forearm and the bicep. And then this will tab in. And the shoulder, it's just falling apart. It's just so junky. There. And it's just hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do on camera. It's hard to do without the camera. But let me see if I can't do it again. So we want this gray piece tabbed into the white piece, and then rotate at the ball peg there, rotate this arm around. We can tuck the hand in And then we have to tab in the shoulder and the forearm, and we want the majority of the screws facing up. And like that. And then you're just tabbing it in. I'm not going to waste your time showing the tabbing in process, but it's just a matter of really fighting with it until you get it. Take these, pull them out, rotate them up, and they'll tab into these pieces. Oof. I'm not pressing it. And then we can bring these out. Don't pull by the tires if you can, because the rubber just comes right off. But I have to. All right, then we have this. This connects on to that. And my angle in that hinge system isn't quite right, like the piston, but it's gonna have to do, there it is. Alrighty. You know, I like the engineering. The scale doesn't work, obviously. There's tire tracks, you know, like the scale doesn't work. I'm not sure that it's possible to really make it work unless you parts form it to pieces. It rolls. I think it kind of works. It's cool to have this rotation here. I like the chrome. I like the engineering. If the plastic was a better quality plastic, the engineering would probably be a lot more enjoyable. The problem is getting stuff to stay as you want it. There is a lot of like fiddliness down in this area, you know, but like this, the main line of the trailer, I actually dig the way that they did it. You can get a 90-degree turn. It is a little weird here with the cab and the stuff, but that might be accurate. I can't remember. And yeah, I think that it works in terms of, you know, pulling it off, but the scale doesn't really work. I'm not sure that it's possible to make the scale work unless, you know, the trailer's like an add-on piece. Like, I kind of feel like this could be the Masterpiece bot all by itself. And, you know, people would get irritated by that too. But yeah, chrome translucent in the front. I don't have a whole lot of complaints with this other than the size and the stuff doesn't stay tabbed together, which is a significant complaint, don't get me wrong. But it's not really... It's not the designer's fault, you know. This is manufacturing choices kind of decision. Unfortunately, you probably realize that we have to get the plain nose cone out, so just set that to the side. We'll come back to that later. And let me just set it off here. We need to open all this up. So just pop this stuff off. You can bring this out and that out. The arms you can get rid of because all of it needs to come undone in order to get inside of here. We're going to try to do it without taking apart as much as possible. Flip that around. Same on this side. Out. Flip around. And then underneath we need to put the wheels away. Get the landing gear out. Fold this in half. And then together and fold down. So in half. The landing gear. Let's try and see if we can. Will it move? It will. Okay, so then get the landing gear out and then tab these together and these together and then bring these sections back around and clip them back in like you had them. Mine, I got one that's a little bit more ornery than the other. There. So we want to put this back the way that we had it. So we're going to bring this down, rotate up at the ball peg, and then tab back in and fold the wheels underneath. Bring the gray section around think you gotta have it kind of stepped on a little bit, and then open up these pieces, and you want to open up these pieces here on the inside, and they're on a little sliding bar, so you may have to slide them up to make them come all the way open, so to speak. All right, now we want to connect the truck, so we're going to grab that, which is right home. Connect it. Fold up these pieces over top of the tires, and I don't think mine is quite lined up right, but the goal, there it is, that's better. Is to line this up and these two tabs here to go into these two ports, and it's just a matter of using the system you got down here to line that up the best you can. So now we have to tab in this thing that we've pulled out into that, which is not the easiest, even though I made it look pretty easy right there, but there. Okay, and then we're gonna undo these here. We're gonna bring out these sections. Come on, we're so close. Okay, there's these pieces here. This is like classic KFC X-Transbot stuff that it like covers down on the ugliness right there. And right here. And then you can tab all this together. Actually, I think you want to bring these down as well. And then all of this tabs together. I'm not going to waste your time showing that. You know how to tab stuff together. Or no, these pieces come up. I'm sorry. These pieces come up. And these pieces come out. And this all tabs together. You can figure that out on your own. And then this piece here comes along and tabs into the top of the roof of the cab. And right there. Take the wings, spin them around to the opposite side, and they'll kind of lock back into place. Same for this side, so untab, bring them around, and they'll lock back in. Get the arms in a position where you can take this tab on the shoulder and lock it in to the forearm. We'll do that on this side as well. So spin, boom, boom. You need the elbow kind of at 90 degrees, the double jointed elbow, utilizing both joints to get you to 90 degrees. And then you want to wrap this around, and this tab here goes into there. So we'll do that here as well. All right, and then we need to hook here into there. You'll see it, it's obvious. Boom, nothing to it but to do it. Boom, clean it up, and we'll take a look at it. And it's kind of a mess. It rolls with the landing gear down, and the landing gear can go up as well, so up, and then in the back here, up. You know, it's a hard one to do, and I get it, but yeesh, I don't know, not the best. Let's look at next to Tiger Tracks. Kind of relatively fine, but certainly it's the worst of the three modes. Like, you know, we talk about how the triple changers, it seems like one mode is always being sacrificed, and it's definitely this mode. It just doesn't come through as well. The top half looks pretty good. It's the back half that kind of falls apart, and then underneath it gets kind of even worse. It seems like something better could have been done, but, you know, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know all the ins and outs of that. It just seems a little unsightly. But still, if it weren't, I have to say the same thing again, if it weren't for the materials kind of making it, you know, feel like junk, it would be a lot better. But it's the fact that the materials are such a soft plastic that it just makes a lot of things hard to kind of click and lock into one another. I'm also having some stress marks. I pointed out the one that was on the hook down here, and I've seen a few others along the way. It's not terrible, but I have noticed some.
No skit today, but I did want to take a second and say this. Remember when you were a kid and you would snoop around looking for Christmas gifts? I have a feeling they may have been right under your nose. So like my kids' Christmas gifts are just sitting down here in trash bags in the storage area. They're just sitting out in the open. But the key to this is that like they could just walk in here and see it, but I know they're never gonna bother to walk in here. It makes me wonder, when I was a kid, if the Christmas gifts were like always under my nose the whole time and I just didn't know. Anyway, just something I thought was interesting.
Final thoughts wise, there's just a lot wrong here. First of all, there's hardly any paint on this thing, significant paint anyway, which ends up making it look really cheap. Partially because there's no paint and partially because it also feels cheap and the materials don't feel up to snuff. I feel like there's some sculpt issues. It's not the cleanest in the world, but also the face is kind of weird, especially for Keith that kind of usually nails the sculpts. The way that the arms tab into the torso, it's just problematic. It ends up popping off and all that kind of stuff, so that's a bummer. It's just a real letdown. Now, part of the problem, I think, is that this piece was revealed or teased so long ago that in hindsight, it may have been good for the time it was designed. But you know, this stuff has a tendency to kind of outgrow itself so quickly that from the time that this was revealed to the time that it was actually released, the standard may have just surpassed the piece. I have to admit that that's a possibility. It has a lot of the X-Transbots issues in terms of engineering, where it's like stuff has to move around other stuff and it doesn't feel very like natural movement. It doesn't feel like it moves smoothly. The truck mode is really small, but I don't really feel like we can hold that against them. But the jet mode kind of looks like trash, so that we do have to hold against them. But there are a few positives. The die-cast gives the figure some weight, so it feels nice in the hand. The engineering itself, for the most part, is pretty interesting and not really all that frustrating. And it has tons of hardware. Ratchets everywhere. The problem is a significant portion of those ratchets ends up pulling the shoulders out of the sockets, but they do feel clickety and they do feel nice. With the exception of the hips, which the spacing between the clicks is a little too much, so it gives it a wobbly sense sometimes in that regard. And the paint where it is applied well. It's just not nearly enough, not to say that you're a masterpiece. This just doesn't have the flair, pizzazz, presence, or cleanup to really be considered a masterpiece. So I can't recommend it. There's just too much wrong with it. That being said, I bought it, and I don't really care enough about the character, so he'll go on my shelf and box checked, and I'm done with this. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.